early Tuesday morning, Gianluca Scamacca's agency, the firm that represents him, released a statement saying they'd parted company with the player. So basically, the agent and the player, they've walked away, they've torn up the contracts. No news there, right? This sort of thing happens all the time. Yet the statement doesn't get shared in the public domain. Not particularly anyway. Or it does, but no one picks up on it. It's not newsworthy. This one was, and there's a very good reason for that. It was the wording of it. They cited a breakdown in trust. I'll read it to you in a second, but they pretty much said that we can't trust a player, that there's a breakdown in trust there. Now, that's a really weird one. That sounds like a sort of a shirty thing to say. I also would suggest that maybe it's something that you probably wouldn't put out there normally, because I think if that was me and I was Scamacca, I'd probably be getting my legal representatives to have a look at that if it wasn't true. So something has clearly happened there, enough for them to feel empowered to make that statement. So that was the first bit, and I thought, well, this is a little bit weird, really. This is in 3 stages, this story, really. Then we had David Moyes' press conference. And in David Moyes' press conference, David Moyes does 2 press conferences. He does one for the television media. That's the stuff that you sit down and you see. That stuff's recorded. If ever you see him speaking at a press conference, it's either Sky or BT have recorded that. He does one a little bit, well, later on in the same day, but he does it for the written press. It's in the same venue, but there's transcripts of that. They have an embargo on that, and you can't release that until later on. Now, during that, it was really interesting what David Moyes had to say about Scamacca, because it was all about using him, about bringing him back into the fold, about him training well, about everything being fine and everything being well. But there was no talk of this rift with the agency, and why would it? I guess why would David Moyes speak about this? Then later on in the day, we're still on Tuesday, yesterday, by the way. Yesterday was Tuesday, wasn't it? Yes, it was. There you go, got my days right. What a bonus. Later on in the day, news started coming from a lot of the big Italian sources, like Gazzetta dello Sport, I think that's one of them. Big Italian sports daily, a few of the other main Italian sports newspapers, saying that Scamacca was unhappy at West Ham and would be looking to move back to Italy in the summer, in June. Now, the very weird thing about this was, what they were talking about was some bizarre loan with an option to buy. Okay, so first of all, I thought, okay, that's weird. Why would we do that? Can't imagine we'd do that anyway. Is it believable that Scamacca's homesick? Yeah, I can believe that. But there was another part to the story, and the story was he didn't basically want to join West Ham anyway. It was just basically it hasn't turned out as he thought at West Ham. Okay, I can believe that as well. But actually, he wished he'd have signed for Paris Saint-Germain. I guess I can believe that. Or he wished he'd have stayed in Italy. The story differs, though, from what we were hearing at the time when he joined us, which was that he'd turned down Paris Saint-Germain to sign for West Ham. Confused? Yeah, I mean, I certainly was, and I think I still am, really. So David Moyes is speaking very highly of the player. However, if you want to add something else to the mix here, and this is what makes it really interesting, I think there is no way that the club didn't know that there'd been a falling out between Scamacca and his agency. They knew that was going to come to an end. You just wouldn't not know about it. So something's gone on there. And this takes us back to the January transfer window, because Scamacca's been out for quite a while with not a massive injury. So West Ham signed Danny Ings in the transfer window, and a lot of us thought that was just to give us a little bit more firepower. Michail Antonio was fit, even if he wasn't in the best of form. He was fit and he was ready, he was playing, and we were hopeful that Scamacca was coming back. So David Moyes uses the phrase, we brought in Danny Ings just to help us out a little bit. Okay, well, that's fine as well. That gives you 3 strikers. However, it has been confirmed by the agent of FC Lorient, who basically that's the club that Terem Moffi plays for, and it's been confirmed by sources close to the club, if you know what I mean, and an agent who we know has brokered West Ham deals in the very, very recent past, that we made a bid for this player of 25 million, I don't know whether it was euros or pounds, whatever it was, doesn't really matter, does it? After the signing of Danny Ings, why would we be looking to sign a player like that? And I just found it really interesting when you look at the dynamic of it, and you think, well, maybe there's some truth in the story. As you will know if you've been I'm going to stop saying if you're watching the channel for a while, particularly considering what I suggested. I think you'll know that I've not been convinced that Scamacca will be with us next season. I don't think he fits what David Moyes wants to do. I think I can understand him, absolutely, being disappointed with what's happened at West Ham. Because, you know what, he played up front with Raspadori at club and international level. We don't play to his strengths, and I can understand him turning up here and thinking, well, this is a load of rubbish. This is not how it looked in the brochure, basically. So, yeah, look, I think that's really, really interesting. Be interested to know what happens on this one. It'd be interesting to see if he plays tonight against Manchester United, which brings me on to somebody else, which is Maxwell Cornet. Before I talk about Maxwell Cornet, I just want to say a big hello to Alex. After the Nottingham Forest game, after 4-0 win, I went up to the pub to have something, not to drown my sorrow, celebrate, to have a couple of pints and have something to eat. And basically, there was somebody who watched Hammers Chat there. His name was Alex. So, how you doing, mate? It was nice to see you. He was there having a meal with his friends and his girlfriend. So, it was very, very nice to see him. And since then, I've got to say, thank you, Alex. I didn't notice you signed up to Patreon. So, thank you very, very much for doing that, mate. And by the way, this is what opportunity to let you know that we do actually have a Patreon page. When I say a Patreon page, it's actually a third Hammers Chat channel where we produce a load of additional content which you don't see on here. We have two main channels which we upload to daily. That's this channel and the main Hammers Chat channel. The only reason we can upload daily is because we're able to do this as our job. The only reason we can do this as our job is because of the patronage and because of the adverts and because of our sponsorship from wonderful people like ETC, wherever the logo is. So if you'd like to help Hammers Chat out and at the same time get massive discounts in our store and get a whole host of additional videos, including a regular podcast from Anton Ferdinand, who appears exclusively on Hammers Chat. He's not one of these ex-players who don't say anything, by the way. He tells it as it is. He doesn't hold back at all. We got player ratings, we got breakfast shows, we got Hammerlytics, we've got Two Spammers and One Hammer, which is an excellent podcast. We got opposition previews. There are loads of bonus material, and in fact, just yesterday I uploaded on Next Watch the Under-21s game, and I gave my opinion on that. The link's in the description below. That's patreon.com/Hammers Chat. Go and check it out. If you don't like it, you can just unsubscribe at the end of it, but we would massively appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. Now, that Under-21 game, I was expecting to see Maxwell Cornet. David Moyes talked about it. He said, you know, we've got a couple of Under-21 games coming up. We're going to get Cornet involved. He didn't. He also alluded to the fact that he looked sharp and that he looked fit. I wouldn't have been surprised, only because of Moyes' comments, if we'd have seen Cornet on the bench against Nottingham Forest. So I thought he's going to play in these Under-21 games. Well, he didn't, which leads me to think he's going to play him, isn't he? He is going to play Maxwell Cornet at some point against Manchester United this evening. I really do think so. I think Moyes, and this goes back to Scamacca here, it would be unusual. Look, even if Scamacca does go back at the end of the season, I do think it's important that we do try and utilise him for two reasons. Number one, we're not in a position where we can not play strikers, particularly strikers as good as Scamacca. We need to try and get a tune out of him. I think the other thing is if he goes back to Italy, having scored not that many goals, just not featured that much, we're not going to get our £35 million back. We're just not. So I think it's important that we utilise him. I do want to see Cornet back. I want to see him. David Moyes was really interested in the way he was speaking about Cornet. It was about him primarily being a left-sided player. He said, David Moyes said that he'd watched Cornet play for Burnley, and he'd seen him, and sometimes he'd partnered Wout Weghorst, which I think is a fantastic. I can say again, Wout Weghorst. What a name, right? Anyway, he partnered Wout Weghorst 3 times. But he thought he preferred him on the left wing because he provided goals from there. And his wording was very interesting. Had it in mind, he thought he could get him into the team, and that would also provide, he thought if he could play for the whole season on the left wing and provide 8 to 10 goals, then it would really help us. Those are not the words of somebody that doesn't intend to play someone. So I think that's really, really interesting. As hopefully we do see Cornet back tonight. I'd be more than happy not to have the full strength team. Let's be fair, we've absolutely got to prioritise the game against Brighton, which is on Saturday, a 3 p.m. kickoff, if I'm not much mistaken. Anyway, you can join myself and Gio this evening over on the main channel from an hour and 5 minutes before kickoff. We will be discussing the lineups, which should hopefully include a couple of the players that I've actually a couple of the players. I've only mentioned 2 players. Both those players should hopefully feature in the game. At some point, you would think. Charlie will take you through the watch-along. Then myself and Gio will be back at, well, immediately after the final whistle. And then, of course, the morning after, you can join myself and Gio over on the Patreon channel to discuss our player ratings. And we've really covered the player ratings. The book, you can tell it's been used. The book, look, it's all looking a bit worn now. But I'll tell you what, there's a lot of data and a lot of opinion in there. You never know. Someone might pay tuppence for it one day. There you go. Anyway, I'll catch up with you later. Hour and 5 minutes before kickoff.